around 8:15 p.m. on April 20th, 1989.
Peggy Bueller was out driving with her mother and father on Highway 200, a dark road near the town of Circle, Montana. Behind Peggy was another vehicle driven by Carol Heinz. Both women were startled by the sight of a car barreling toward them head-on in their lane. Peggy swerved off the road, narrowly missing the oncoming car. Carol wasn't so lucky. She swerved, but it was too late, and the oncoming car slammed into her head-on. Peggy was so shaken by the near miss that she could no longer drive. She asked her father to drive back to the accident scene. Meanwhile, Carol, now in shock, staggered out of her car only to see a woman, who was later verified to be Patricia Meehan, emerge from the darkness. Patricia stared at Carol, but didn't say a word. When Peggy Bueller and her parents arrived at the scene, Patricia walked away and climbed over a highway fence. She glanced back at them, her expression detached, as if she were merely observing the accident. They gestured for her to return, but Patricia turned and walked away. After that night, the story gets even stranger. What happened to Patricia Meehan? Please subscribe to this channel. Disclaimer: we are not healthcare or law enforcement professionals. Comments in this episode are based on our own research from the internet and other sources. We work hard for accuracy, but sometimes still make mistakes. You are free to disagree with our conclusions. Please comment. Within half an hour of the accident, the authorities had identified the woman who fled from the scene as Patricia Meehan. Searching through the flat, grassy plains of eastern Montana, the police discovered a trail of tennis shoe prints that led to a field about 3/4 of a mile away from the crash scene. They believe these prints were made by Meehan. The search team followed the tracks until about 3 a.m. when the trail disappeared due to the terrain in the area. The search was halted until the next day. The family would arrive to assist in the search. They rode ATVs and horses through the area, scouring nearby hills, and even descended down into abandoned coal mines looking for Patricia. The police would later theorize that Patricia may have escaped the area by hiding in a hay truck that was parked in a nearby farm at the time. The family arranged for a helicopter to do a sweep in a desperate attempt to find their daughter. They found nothing. Patricia, however, would be seen again. On May 4th, 2 weeks after the accident, Patricia was seen at a Hardee's restaurant in Laverne, Minnesota. She'd been sitting in a booth drinking water for over 5 hours. When Hardee's closed, she walked to a nearby 24-hour diner. Patricia's odd behavior got the attention of the police, who showed up at the 24-hour diner to question Patricia. She would not give her name and originally stated she was from Colorado and then Israel. Strangely, no further action was taken by the police. The following day, on May 5th, 2 other sightings of Patricia were reported in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A waitress claimed she saw Patricia drinking coffee from midnight until 11:30 a.m. the next morning. She was seen again later that day in Murdo, South Dakota between 10 and 11 p.m., but this time she was with a man in his 30s. On September 2nd, 1990, a woman calling herself Morningstar was arrested for littering. Officer Steve Koskamaki spotted Morningstar in a restaurant and was sure it was Meehan, who he recognized from one of the thousands of missing person posters her parents circulated. When she threw a newspaper in the street, Officer Koskamaki arrested her. The police contacted her ex-boyfriend, Kurt Fletchel of Spokane, Washington, who stated Meehan was not the woman in custody. During an appearance on Friday before Magistrate Neil Walter, the woman claimed she was a missionary for God and had stopped in town en route from Seattle to Montana. "I really think it's her. This woman is the spitting image of Meehan," said Lieutenant Greg Surplus. "If this isn't her, then we've still got a missing person from somewhere." All of these sightings have one thing in common with Patricia's hometown of Bozeman, Montana. They all lie along Interstate 90, which runs from Seattle, Washington to Boston, Massachusetts. I-90 is a major east-west corridor for commercial trucking and motor vehicles.
There were 5,000 sightings of Patricia Meehan since that strange night on April 20th, 1989.
However, Patricia never contacted her family or returned to her home in Bozeman, Montana. Why? Let's look deeper into the days before the accident. Patricia Meehan was born on November 1st, 1951, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to Dolly and Thomas. She was described by her friends and family as sweet and kind. Patricia attended an early childhood development program at Oklahoma City College. This career fit her nurturing personality, and she loved the kids she worked with. Patricia stayed in the classroom until 1985, when she suddenly moved to Bozeman, Montana to work as a ranch hand. This sudden shift caught her friends and family by surprise, but they assumed this was due to her love of animals. She also worked odd jobs during this period to support herself. Between 1985 through 1989, Patricia became depressed and withdrawn, and her soft, nurturing smile disappeared from her face. In an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, Patricia's mom, Dolly, stated that Patricia was examining her life, missed the kids she once took care of, and was sad she never had kids of her own. On April 19th, the day before Patricia disappeared, Patricia told her father that she was under stress and wanted to move home to Pittsburgh for a while. Her parents allowed her to come back under one condition, that she meet with a psychologist first. She would crash her car before she was able to attend the appointment or make it back home. What happened to Patricia Meehan? We can't answer that question, but we can shed some light on the mystery. One question is, what was she doing on Highway 200 near Circle, Montana that night, 380 miles from her home in Bozeman, Montana? She had stated that she wanted to go home. However, it would have been much easier and quicker if she had just stayed on I-90, unless she got lost on the way and turned onto I-94 instead. The other possibility is that she was depressed and wanted to go for a long car ride to work things out. If she were heading home, she would have taken more of her belongings with her in the car. What explains her strange activity after the accident? Perhaps she was too depressed to deal with the consequences of the accident she caused, and seeking a new life, she simply left and took on a new identity. This seems unlikely for the following reasons. Completely separating from a past identity is very difficult, especially without a plan. This includes never speaking to old friends or family again and completely changing your habits. For instance, if you're into yoga, you should never go into a yoga studio again, because people from your past life and authorities would look for you there. It is recommended that you not buy a car and rely on public transportation, as you would need a fake ID or to use your old one. If you get pulled over, the police may spot your fake ID. If you use your original ID, the traffic ticket can be tracked in databases. You also need to pay cash for everything. Separation from electronic devices such as computers and cell phones is also a must. Most people who try to disappear don't have the discipline to not fall into their old habits and are eventually found. She may have been suffering from retrograde dissociative amnesia, where the person forgets key facts about their life and blocks the person from remembering their past. Dissociative amnesia usually occurs when a person is subjected to a severe trauma, such as abuse, war, or natural disasters, or in this case, severe depression followed by a violent car accident. In either case, one has to ask, if her memories were gone and she didn't use her old identity, how did she hold down a job and support herself? She could have taken on odd jobs, taking only cash as payment. Sadly, she was traveling along Interstate 90, which is heavily used by truckers. Patricia was not addicted to drugs at the time of her disappearance. But did she turn to sex work, as drug addicts often do, working the truck stops along I-90? The final option is that after walking away from the crash site that night, she succumbed to the elements and died somewhere in the wilderness of Montana. If that is the case, why were there so many sightings of her in the days and years after the crash? Could all 5,000 sightings of Patricia be the case of mistaken identity? In Patricia's case, you even have police officers believing they had contact with her. Our conclusion is
On the night of April 20th, 1989, Patricia was depressed and went out for a drive to clear her head.
at some point she got tired and probably fell asleep at the wheel and swerved into the oncoming lane and collided head-on with Carol Heinz. Carol described Patricia as uninjured, so she probably didn't receive a head injury. Dazed, confused, and depressed, she didn't want to stay around to face the consequences of the accident she just caused and wandered off into the wilderness. Still having her memories, she crawled into the hay truck. Over the next few hours, the trauma of the accident and her depression caused her to disassociate from her past memories, and she forgot her previous life and identity and took on a new life. If Patricia is still alive at the release of this episode, she would now be 73 years old. If you have any information about the disappearance of Patricia Meehan, please call the Macomb County Sheriff's Department at 406-485-3405. Patricia Meehan is missing, but not forgotten. Help us get more coverage for missing people. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and see you soon.